Howdy trail traders, Overland Dave here on BIGFOOT RC, and I'm just come on here just to say hi and welcome back. We're going to show the Mud Trapper video, so it's a fantastic story. Hope you enjoy it. Leave us a comment, watch till the end, it's worth the wait. Thanks very much, we'll see you soon. Bye.
We've got a bad situation on. I have a bunch of savages out here just aching to splatter you all over the place. They don't want your side told. Now, if you don't come in with me, that's all the excuse they'll need. They'll either kill you or get themselves killed trying.
You can't stop it.
Hold it!
They fight for the same cause. They live by the same code. But now, the law has made them enemies. Death Hunt, based on the true story of one of the greatest manhunts ever.
If anybody's gonna bring Albert Johnson in, it's gonna be me, not some bounty hunter or a fly boy bucking for promotion.
Why you? Why you so special?
He deserves me.
Lee Marvin has the badge and the determination to get his man.
Would it make any difference if I waited? If I left now, I'd never know what it would have been like with you.
Let's go!
He's the last man in the world that anybody'd want on his trail.
Charles Bronson has the wilderness.
We've been hunting a man who knows how to live off the land, and here's the terrain.
As you can see, he was one of the American best trained men, special intelligence squad in the war.
And the will to be free.
Pure fact is he's running to save his hide. And every man he killed to protect himself.
Well, what about Hawkins or Sundog? Or any of them? What did any of them die for, Millen?
Johnson didn't do anything I wouldn't do if I was in his boots. If I thought the killing would stop here, I'd let him go.
Charles Bronson, Lee Marvin, Death Hunt. Two men of equal courage face each other as enemies and triumph as heroes along the last frontier.
There he is!
We got it!
Death Hunt.
The Arctic trails do indeed have their secret tales, and one of the best is that of the Mad Trapper of Rat River, equal to the legends of Bonnie and Clyde and John Dillinger. A courageous and unrelenting posse on the trail of a furious and desperate wilderness outlaw. Lean and bloody, meticulously researched, the Mad Trapper of Rat River is a dark and haunting story of human endurance, adventure, and a will that speeds along like a train. They called it the Arctic Circle War. In a 48-day manhunt across the harshest terrain in the world, Albert Johnson endured blizzards and temperatures of 40 degrees below zero as he evaded the Canadian mountains at every turn. Alone or working a string of traps in the far reaches of Canada's Northwest Territories, Johnson lived a quiet life. But when he was approached by two mounties inquiring about allegations against him, his quiet life was upended. No questions were asked. Johnson discharged the first shot through a hole in the wall of his log cabin. When the mounties returned with reinforcements, he was gone, and the Arctic Circle War had begun. On Johnson's heels were a corps of mounties and an irregular posse of dogsled. Johnson, on snowshoes, seemed superhuman in his ability to evade capture. The chase stretched for hundreds of miles, and during a blizzard, he crossed the Richardson Mountains, the northernmost extension of the Rockies. No one was sure if the Mad Trapper of Rat River would ever be caught. The man was 5 feet 9 inches tall. He had light brown hair and pale blue eyes. He weighed 175 pounds with legs like tree stumps and shoulders as powerful as those of a caribou bull. He quickly removed 2 rifles slung over his 200-pound pack and jammed one into the snow. It was a Winchester .22. He hefted the other gun in his hand and quietly racked a shell into the breech. The piece was a 30-30 Model 99 featherweight takedown Savage, and made of in velocity as it lacked in size. The rugged, clear-eyed man slowly knelt down in the snow. Unseen, he had the figure of a man following his trail. He wondered who would be following him above McQuestion Flats 15 miles north of Keno, Yukon Territory. It was May 7th, 1931, and he was heading to the Beaver River, and then across the Wernick Mountains to the Arctic slope. From there he would travel northwards to the Porcupine River country. He wanted to be alone, and was ready to ensure he would remain alone. He raised the rifle to his shoulder. 3 more steps and the man approaching him would be close enough. Johnson slid his index finger through the trigger guard of his rifle. He counted down the scale. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Suddenly, the stranger stopped, scanned the trail, and then turned around and walked back the way he had come. Johnson lowered the Savage. He had seen that the man wore the chocolate brown drill parka of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. He shrugged and then slung the 2 rifles over his pack and continued north. He was never to be seen in this vicinity again. Former Royal Canadian Mounted Police Corporal Thomas Coleman always wondered, in the view of the saga that was later to unfold,
discharged the first shot.
what might have happened if he had kept following the mystery man's trail through the snow that day. He never forgot the date because it was his 27th birthday. The Mountie had been north to the Silver Hill area and had counted 3 men while tracking the regular 10-year census. He was mushing his dog team back to Keno when he came across fresh tracks and abruptly led off the trail. Coleman jumped off his sled and flipped it over to hold the dogs. He took 2 deep snow to follow the tracks made by the other man. Since the stranger was not wearing snowshoes, Coleman did not think he would go very far, probably hunting. He thought he would struggle through the snow made sloppy by the warnings of his spring. He followed the snow path for 400 yards and then decided to turn around and go back. Coleman figured he had already included the individual in the census, or if not, he would tabulate the man if he returned to the same route later. Yet there were 2 aspects of the situation that puzzled him. One, the possibility the stranger might have run away to solely avoid him. The other was the man's speed in getting out of sight. Coleman doubted he had his dog team coming from a quarter of a mile away. He had managed to jump off the trail and disappear into space. It took Coleman to get 400 yards downhill, dog team over the beaten track. The Mountie speculated the man in the tremendous physical condition, whoever he was. Coleman made his way back to the team and then mushed 8 miles to where John Kinman and Leon Snooze Erickson were camped on a creek draining out of nearby Hanson Lakes. He met Kinman, who was fishing for grayling by the bridge of the trail across the creek. "Do you see anyone who go out there recently, John?" Coleman asked. Kinman nodded. Yes, some guy was sporting a pack that would break the back of a mule. He was also carrying 2 rifles. One looked like a Savage and the other was a .22. He wasn't very friendly though. I said hello and he just mumbled something I could hear and walked on by. Coleman thanked the fisherman for his information and went on to Keno. He kept thinking about the tracks he had followed. Something to him was not right. 2 weeks later he had walked into the Northern Commercial Company store in Keno and met a stranger face to face. The man had such a hard look about him. Coleman led us to talk to Dick O'Lean. Who he was? I don't know, O'Lean said. I thought I told him you were taking the census and you would need to get his name. He said he already been counted down in Mayo. Coleman thought about it with this and then finally got back to Keno. He picked up the telephone and called Constable Don Perks in Mayo and asked his fellow policeman if he included the stranger in his census report. No, Perks told him. I haven't counted one person I didn't already know. The stranger and an individual who had passed by John Kinman had almost certainly been the same man. He'd eluded census takers, but why? Coleman had other duties to perform and shrugged it off. However, the question of the man's identity nagged him for a long time. Big John MacDonald was another who wondered about Nelson. MacDonald was a friendly giant of a man in a region of tough men, the Yukon Territory. John, who was more popularly known as Hard Rock, was offered $5 by the stranger who'd show him the route to Hard Rock. Hard Rock was surprised by the offer of the money for directions he would gladly give for nothing. This and the stranger's attitude of the transient perplexed him. Why would anyone pay for information in a region where hospitality of the people was taken for granted? Still another person who was to wonder about the newcomer was Bud Fisher, who was at the time operated the transportation business in Mayo. Several weeks before Coleman met Johnson, Fisher had given the man a ride from Keno to Mayo. He would say how he came in from Lansing by way of Mayo Lake, or had been in direction of Great Bear Lake and come from there. He added that the man purchased supplies in Mayo and then walked back towards Keno. Fisher never saw the man again either. Later, Ol Olsen, a Norwegian prospector and man stranger, had lived for 2 weeks in a cabin near him in Keno. He was also a Norwegian. One day he was there, and the next he was gone. The stranger Arthur Nelson, he said, comparing what he was there for 2 miles in Keno. The greater was the feeling for him on the part of the public, hoping the underdog might win out and escape altogether. A plane was dispatched for the RcMP to use. This had never been seen before, and was great use in his capture. February the 5th, the party found that Johnson, after climbing the cliff to escape Millen's men, had disappeared in a jumbled array of creek beds and canyons which made up the watershed of the Rat and Barrier rivers. February the 9th had seen a blizzard rip through the Rat and Barrier River watersheds. The blizzard swept the entire Mackenzie Delta, grounding the plain, and grinding patrols to a standstill. Yet during the snowstorm, the mad trapper chose to bolt across the high ridges of the Richardson Mountains in a bid for freedom. For 3 days the plain was grounded, until February 7th, when the fog cleared. On February the 17th, shortly before noon, the posse ran head-on into Johnson. Sergeant Heresy, with his strong team of 7 Mackenzie River Huskies, was in the lead. The snow was not packed, but even so, the going was fairly good for that area. Johnson obviously thought they was behind him after backtracking along the old tracks. He was startled when he saw me. He put his homemade snowshoes on, which I recognised, and started to the bank of the river. Hersey grabbed his rifle and started to fire. Johnson ran a few steps and then whirled and snapped off a shot at Hersey. The slug of the .30 Savage hit Hersey, who was kneeling position. It went straight through his elbow, through his knee, and through his chest. They thought he was dead. He signalled to the party to break into 2 segments, and the plane overhead could even hear the gunshots that were being fired down below.
Barrier River, thus leaving the men on foot once time and energy was going on for the last 30 days. He escaped during a blizzard and several more blizzards had swept the area since that time. The temperature rested between 30
into the trapper's shallow sanctuary. Wap and May and Jack Bone had been shooting pictures of the battle from the plane. It was so cold they could hear the rifle shots above the roar of the engine. The plane circled and then came roaring back down the river, and once again it peered down at Johnson in the snow trench. Then as I circled over the posse, I saw a figure lying on a bedroll. I realised that one of the party had been hit. I circled back upriver, passing over the posse and Johnson. As I flew over the fugitive lair, it seemed as though he was lying in an unnatural position, swinging back down till our skis were tickling the snow. I could see Johnson plain as I flashed past. He was lying face down in the snow, his right arm flung, grasping his rifle. I knew as I looked that he was dead. After a 48-day battle of the Arctic Circle, the Mounties had got their man. But who was he?
He was still at large.
Towards the Arctic Circle. It was after their man. After two horrific shootouts where two men got killed, it was in hot pursuit of the mad trapper. And this is Peel River and the Mounties' pursuit of the mad trapper.
Every night it's in the blizzard ripped through the Rat River and Barrier River watercourse. The blizzard swept the entire McKenzie Delta. The mad trapper chose to bolt across the high ridges of the Richard Mountain in his bid for freedom. Local Indians said the trapper would never try to go straight across the mountains in winter. The white trappers and veterans of the North Country agreed with them. No man could cross those mountains after being chased for 30 days and wind chill factors reaching 100 below zero. Yet on February the 12th, the message that Johnson was on the other side of the Richardson Peaks and still going strong to his day. No one knows how he managed to achieve which seasoned mountaineers with the best of food and equipment would have hesitated to attempt. It was a prodigious feat of endurance, and only underlined that Sergeant later said of the man Johnson had tremendous.
As the Mounties were camped out at Peel River, they decided to ambush them in another gunfight.
river, shouted twice for Johnson to surrender. In the space of a few minutes, Garland, Jackson, Moses and I were located on the high bank of the river, with Johnson below and between the two groups. He shot ammunition in Johnson's pocket and it jingled about and jumped about as it damaged his thigh. Another bullet slammed into his shoulder and another into his thigh, but the trapper kept on firing. Inspector Eames shouted for a third time and called Johnson to surrender, but he didn't, as a barker with 33rd Savage in the way of his arm across his 4 fusos had led into the trapper's shallow sanctuary. As the plane flew over the master of the flying in a beautiful position, leaning back and could see Johnson
An invisible target about a tentacle finding the corpse of a man suspended from a beam
laying face down in the snow, grasping his rifle,
awkwardly,
and he looked
at an angle, his features locked in a macabre grimace, accentuated by wide, static blue eyes that could not see, frostbitten ears insensible to sound, a nose swollen grotesquely, and purple-tinged lips silenced forever by the permanence of death. If an observer moved closer and removed the tarp wrapped around the cadaver, he would immediately know that the frozen corpse was rent with 7 bullet holes. Mute testimony that the death of his individual had not been a tranquil one. This man, chilled by temperatures averaging 40 below zero, had defied the combined force of white and Indian trappers and men of the RCMP in a 48-day running battle in the Arctic Circle during the winter of 1931-32, exhibiting incredible fortitude, woodmanship, survival skills and fighting ability. He was to engage in 4 shootouts with his pursuers, seriously wounding two and killing a third before he finally gunned down in a bloody exchange of gunfire at Eagle River, Yukon Territory, February 7th, 1932. The Mounties had got their man. But who was he? So we'll be doing a build on this as well at Cooter's Garage. Carrying on with the truck house build. Also, try and get the back done on that. And we're going to do Willie's Jeep as well. So don't forget to tune in on BIGFOOT RC. It's Overland Dave saying see you soon, stay rebel, always stay positive, and I keep fighting on. Bye for now.